from an ex-vacant space. It's where I'm sitting now. It's now my living room. It used to be my office, and before that, it used to be an empty space that didn't have any use for many years. And before that, it used to be a workshop for somebody working with metal sheets and making roofs. And it also here something happened that I think we would like to see happening in empty spaces, maybe even better. And it has to do about switching the perspectives from seeing vacant spaces as a problem to see them as a potential. This is now a very personal perspective, but for us was a potential to find affordable space where to live, work, and now live. So to kick us our architecture office, but in general, this perspective switch is, I think, it's very, very important, and it's where a lot of things can happen if we are able to see them, to see the potential and not the problem. And to do that, that's my experience. There are some kind of questions which are recurring in the presentations we have, which are questions basically also about innovation, that is not just about what to do, but it's also for whom are we doing, or should something, for whom is the potential there, and how can you activate this potential, with which resources, the question of the money, and then in the end also how to evaluate the impact. One of the projects that where I was confronted with this issue of vacant spaces, and which I found was had a very big perspective and very big aims, was maybe in the city of Amsterdam, where already in 2010, I think they established an agency called Broedplaatsen. So it's like incubating spaces, where the city developed an agency from the city itself with a lot of money to redevelop vacant spaces. But their aim was not to redevelop vacant spaces. Their aim was to create regenerations in areas that had problems, as well as creating spaces for the creative industry, which for the city of Amsterdam was very important. And that's why the city decided to invest a lot of money. But I think what was interesting was the system they developed was basically based on giving money to people who were interested in doing something. So they were not investing themselves, but they were telling people, if you have an idea how to reuse a building, make a business plan. You have to guarantee a certain amount of working spaces for artists in this reuse of the building. This have to be affordable. The rest you can do as you want. You need to make a cafe in this building, and we will help you by financing with you what in a 3 years business plan is not rentable. So what, let's say, if you make a business plan and there is a minus, this minus can be financed by us, and we will help you to get the money from the bank to finance your thing. So they were investing some money, but basically they were investing in people that would activate these spaces. And they create a lot of spaces like this. This is one of them that I visited in 2016. But they really created a kind of urban structure of, like an urban, so the aim was to create an urban impact. That is, of course, nice because it's a big town, lot of things. Other experiences that we have in Austria or in Germany about vacant spaces, which are the experiences of small towns, especially very small towns. And what you see here is what they called, it's a negative development spiral. And it's looking at how vacant spaces are creating more vacant spaces, especially in small towns where the kind of shopping habits have changed. Maybe the population is decreasing, and then the city center, the town centers are getting emptier and emptier, and And you get, basically when it starts, the main shop, maybe it's a bit like in where people go and buy the daily things, gets moved out of a city center because they have a big supermarket, and the supermarket doesn't want, it's too expensive for the supermarket to be in the city center. When the supermarket is out, all the other shops also start to not to be able to support, to have enough people, because everybody's going shopping outside, and maybe more and more people are shopping online. So it starts with one vacant space, and after a while it gets to many more vacant spaces. And this kind of processes, for example, as an office, we were consulting, and we sub-consult in the municipality in the south of Austria, and that's kind of creates a kind of a groovier, like empty, so it kind of lots of holes in the urban structure of these places. And the question is, what I'm trying to say is, it's a general problem. It has a lot of layers. It's in small towns as well as in bigger towns. But of course, the question is how to react to it is difficult. And it has a lot of layers in which we can work with. And it's also not about one thing. It's about, in German, you have this word that is called Handlungsfelder, which means kind of fields of actions, if you want. And if you think, what can you do? And I think that's also what Uli has been talking about. It's also what Bahanu has been talking about. It's about putting together a lot of layers in the city. So it's about, anyway, about collaborations between maybe also people and agencies and organizations that are not usually working together. But if you're not able to do this, to put together all these layers, it's very, very difficult to find solutions, because it's not about just the vacant spaces in itself, but it's about the conditions that have created these vacant spaces, and there is no ready-made solution. So lots of people, lots of alliances have to come together in order to find solutions. And these solutions are new solutions, that are not ready-made and there. That is something we also have confronted, not as an office, but me personally as working with a university, in a project that was one of a project that also Uli mentioned, that was part of that was initiated as a research project, and research and development project, where we looked really like, actually, we didn't have a problem of empty spaces, but we had the possibility of activating the potential of one empty space. And we did that in the perspective of trying to be part as a university in a redevelopment development project inside the city of a big area of that used to be railways, and now it's becoming part of the city of Vienna. And here there was this warehouse, which was in the center of this area, that is, or part of this area that is being redeveloped. And we said, we managed as university to put together a consortium, including also the housing developers, and to organize money to activate this space for 3 years, and to say this activation is part of a development project of the urban area and will contribute to the urban area. And why is this interesting? Because in a way we came to this with not so much as a project, but as an idea of what to do, but saying we have the money to activate the space, and the space gets filled in. And what was the kind of filling in that it was on one way was one part we knew, one part it was about trying to make space for entrepreneurs, but not like the fancy creative entrepreneurs, but it was really about trying to make affordable spaces for work, for very small micro entrepreneurs. And the other component of the project was to offer this space to the community. And the community that docked into the space was, on one hand, the culture community, because culture was there, but also very much the local community. And this issue, who is, what are the uses, which are the uses that can be thought of, it's part also of a process that you can define. So maybe it's not about predefining them, but it's also about finding along the way what are the uses that you can do. And one of the, let's say, of the side issue of a project was the question of how can you use spaces cooperatively. So how, because this, it's never about one person, it's about more person, and it's also about the potential of sharing that is part of this range of approaches that can help activate vacant spaces. And what we also saw in the project was the possibility to move from the analog layer or dimension to the digital dimension. So part of the project is a platform called Ingresso.at, that is a local platform, and they developed with the project an online tool that allows people to share. So it's a share their spaces. So if you're looking for a space, you can go there and you will get, for example, a working table. You can look for a working table. You can look for a praxis for homeopathy, or if you want to work with in health sector, you can rent a studio for 1 hour a week or 2 hours a week. But this kind of very small scale networking, it's very, very difficult, but it's essential in order to activate space and to also to provide affordability, both for the people renting the spaces and for the people looking for spaces. So it's true, there are like things, big things, but like where you need a Raumunternehmer, like Uli mentioned, but there is also a much smaller dimension. If you have a 50 square meters space, you don't need a Raumunternehmer, but you might still need to be able to share the space in order to share the costs, because we are not talking about people with a lot of money. We're talking also about people with little money that needs to be flexible. And this issue of what can you do when thinking about activating vacant spaces, I think you need to have certain characteristic in perspective, in mind. So one I mentioned before was the issue of temporary uses. That's one way. The other issue, what also was mentioned before, the low threshold. So in a way, the easiness to access and also to get off, the affordability are really relevant characteristic of how to make space available. The other point is the cooperations. So it's not about one big thing, but it's a lot of singular persons that should come together, but needs to come together. It's about creative, yes, but not only creative. There are a lot of also non-creative form of works that might need this kind of spaces. It's about culture and community and low-tech solution, but also I think this kind of open-endedness, that not everything is defined from the beginning, but it's more into an issue of a process that needs to be started and accompanied. The questions, how, by whom, it's important. We had in the first workshop, we talk about top down and bottom up, but I think it's very much, and if I think, for example, what the city of Amsterdam did, it's about bottom linked solutions. So it's about not only providing structures, but also enabling initiatives. So enabling is what is important, I think, that to think about how can initiatives be enabled. This is one of the first examples that I take with me in my let's say, from my practice where we helped small municipalities in southern Austria to deal with this issue. This is a lady, for example, she is a physiotherapist, and she managed to activate the former supermarket in the center of the town here. And how did she do that? Well, through Facebook, she contacted other consultants like her in the health sector, and she managed to put together at least 13, 14 people who were interested in using once a week, maybe once every 2 weeks, this space. And at the same time, the owner of this space was able, through the city, to have a little bit of money to divide the supermarket in smaller spaces. So he invested a bit, got a bit of money from the city, and the lady managed to put together through her network this combinations of health offers, which are now available to the whole town. So it's a kind of mix between her initiative and the fact that her initiative got a response or the support from the top. But it was her initiative. The town didn't have any idea about making their health sector offer, but it was the combination of the two. So I think there needs to be an issue of process approach of managing these things. There needs the questions of how to support the initiative, and also the fact that you need to identify the caretaker. So it's like none of us is going to sit there and activate the space itself. So there needs to be involvement of potential caretakers in the project, in the process. And if you do that, I think then we can, with our knowledge, try to help and to identify the modes of support. But it has to be, it is about networking, and it is about involvement, and in the end it's also about participation. So I think it cannot be about top down. It really has to be the questions, how can we develop for leisure bottom linked approaches. So, yes, and that's about it. And I hope it gives some inputs, and